I've had 3 boyfriends in my life. My current boyfriend, Alex, with whom I've been happily together for 3 years. Then there was my first boyfriend in college. And finally, there was Jake. Jake was someone who turned my life into a nightmare, filling my days with fear and uncertainty. Let me take you back to how it all started. Jake and I crossed paths at a local coffee shop. There was an instant connection, and our conversations flowed effortlessly. After a few weeks of getting to know each other, we decided to take the leap and become a couple. The early days were filled with romance and excitement, and I thought I had found the perfect partner. But as time went on, Jake's behavior took a dark turn. He became possessive and controlling, constantly questioning my every move. He insisted on knowing my whereabouts at all times and would grow angry if I didn't respond to his messages immediately. What began as innocent concern soon escalated into suffocating jealousy. Jake isolated me from my friends and family, convincing me that he was the only one who truly cared about me. He manipulated me into believing that everyone else was against our relationship. Slowly, my world became smaller, and I found myself dependent on him for validation and companionship. His possessiveness reached its peak when I attempted to spend an evening with my friends without him. Jake bombarded me with calls and texts, demanding that I return home immediately. The more I resisted, the angrier he became, hurling hurtful accusations and threats. I felt trapped, my every move dictated by his volatile emotions. One fateful night, after I had mustered the courage to end the relationship, Jake's true colors emerged. He showed up unannounced at my doorstep, his eyes burning with rage. He forced his way into my apartment, cornering me with his intimidating presence. Fear gripped my heart as he lashed out, his hands bruising my arms. Terrified and desperate to escape, I managed to break free from his grasp and ran to a neighbor's apartment to seek help. The police were called, and Jake was arrested for assault. It was a harrowing experience, but it was also the turning point that set me on a path to freedom and healing. In the aftermath, I discovered the extent of Jake's manipulation and the cycle of abuse he had subjected me to. With the support of loved ones and professional help, I began to rebuild my life, regaining my sense of self and reclaiming my independence. Let me start by telling you about Sarah and I. We were like peas in a pod, 2 souls perfectly matched. We had that once-in-a-lifetime kind of love, the kind you see in movies. Life was sweet, filled with laughter, and brimming with dreams of a future together. But little did we know, a dark shadow was lurking just around the corner. Enter Michael, Sarah's ex-boyfriend. He just couldn't let go, couldn't move on like a normal person. His mind got all twisted up with jealousy and possessiveness. It was like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, and we were caught right in the blast radius. At first, we didn't pay much attention to the signs. We brushed off his random appearances and the weird gifts he sent, thinking he'd eventually come to his senses. But as time passed, things started to take a turn for the worse. Late at night, we'd hear strange noises outside our house. It was as if someone was lurking in the shadows, watching our every move. Sarah, bless her heart, got more and more anxious, always looking over her shoulder, feeling like she was being hunted. And truth be told, she kinda was. Michael's stalking game got real intense. He'd show up at the places we frequented, following us like a silent shadow. We couldn't escape his gaze no matter how hard we tried. It was like he had some supernatural ability to appear out of thin air, sending shivers down our spines. The more Sarah tried to distance herself, the more relentless Michael became. He'd leave creepy notes on our doorstep, full of twisted declarations of love and chilling threats. It was enough to make even the bravest soul cower in fear. We reached out to the police, praying they'd help us break free from this living nightmare. But the law can be a tricky business, and without concrete evidence, they couldn't do much. It was like we were caught in a spider's web, tangled up and suffocating. The tension escalated day by day. Sarah's anxiety skyrocketed, and I felt helpless, unable to protect the love of my life. We installed security cameras, hoping to catch Michael in the act, but he was always one step ahead, disappearing like a ghost before we could catch him red-handed. And then, tragedy struck. It was a day like any other when I came home to find Sarah lying lifeless on the floor, her innocence stolen away by Michael's twisted rage. The grief, the pain, it's something I can't put into words. My world shattered, and the darkness consumed everything. Michael was eventually apprehended, but it was too late to save Sarah. We got some semblance of justice, but it can never bring her back. The wounds are deep, and the scars will forever remain. Hey everyone, I need to share a story that still gives me nightmares to this day. It's a tale of darkness, pain, and survival. So listen closely, because this could happen to anyone. I was once in an abusive relationship that consumed my entire being. You know, the kind that starts off with sweet words and promises, but slowly devours your soul. His name was Alonzo, and he seemed like a loving boyfriend at first, but behind closed doors, a monster lurked. It started with small things: jealousy, possessiveness. He wanted to control every aspect of my life, from who I spoke to what I wore. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a phase. Oh, how wrong I was. As time went on, Alonzo's behavior grew more erratic. He'd fly into uncontrollable fits of rage over the smallest things, blaming me for his problems. His words cut like knives, leaving scars on my self-esteem. I felt trapped, suffocated by his suffocating grip. It wasn't just the verbal abuse, the physical violence soon followed. The first time he laid his hands on me, I was shocked. The pain was unbearable, but the emotional scars ran deeper. I didn't know how to escape the nightmare that my life had become. I tried to reach out for help, but Alonzo had twisted my mind so much that I believed it was all my fault. I was convinced that no one would believe me, that I deserved the pain. So I suffered in silence, hoping for a miracle. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The abuse continued, growing worse with each passing day. I became a shell of my former self, afraid to look in the mirror and see the broken person staring back at me. The bruises on my body became a secret I hid from the world. But then, something happened that changed everything. One night, as Alonzo's rage engulfed our tiny apartment, he crossed a line. He started talking to imaginary people, lost in a delusion that only he could understand. It was as if he had gone completely mad. Terrified for my life, I called the authorities. They arrived, and seeing the state Alonzo was in, took him away to a mental institute. It was a bittersweet moment. I had escaped the physical abuse, but the scars remained, both inside and out. Now I'm slowly rebuilding my life. It's not easy, and the nightmares still haunt me. But I want to share my story to remind others that they're not alone. Abuse can happen to anyone, regardless of their gender. Don't suffer in silence like I did.